Part 1. Personal Background. Chapter 1. Benjamin Breckinridge Warfield, the Man and His Work. At important moments in the history of the Church, God has raised up men to give voice to His Word. There is Augustine, the theologian of sin and grace. He did not invent these doctrines, of course, but in his battle with Pelagius, he gave them such clear and cogent articulation that ever since he has been recognized as the one who bestowed these doctrines to us. So also there is Anselm, the theologian of the doctrine of the atonement, and there is Luther, the theologian of justification, and there is Calvin, the theologian of the Holy Spirit. Warfield, the theologian of inspiration, and more. In this same sense, Benjamin Breckinridge Warfield, 1851 to 1921, of Old Princeton, is known as the theologian of the doctrine of inspiration. Those who hold to the historic doctrine today add very little to what Warfield said about 100 years ago. So also, any who reject that doctrine must contend with Warfield before their work is complete. He was the theologian of inspiration. This was his gift, in God's kind providence, to the modern church. Impressive as all this is, it does not provide anything close to an adequate representation of this man, who was certainly one of the greatest, arguably the greatest of all, theologians America ever produced. Although the doctrine of inspiration was largely the issue of his day, and although he, above all others, provided exposition and defense of it, this was not what he would have considered his center. And despite his many hundreds of published pages devoted to this cherished theme, it was not his leading area of theological attention. Staggering as his output on this theme was, Warfield was no mere single-issue specialist. His learning was massive, and he excelled in virtually every department of biblical studies. In terms of both the breadth and depth of his scholarship, he was virtually without peer. Warfield's life. Warfield's life story, in one respect, is not particularly spectacular. He was not an activist, he rarely traveled, he founded no movement, and although immensely influential in his Presbyterian Church, PCUSA, he was never one of its official leaders. He was a theologian in the Theological Seminary at Princeton, New Jersey, and he did scarcely little else. His story and his legacy are found, rather, in the many thousands of pages of theological writings that streamed from his pen for some 4 decades, from roughly 1880 to 1921. It is by his voluminous writings that he became one of the most outstanding and influential theologians of his day, and it is by means of these writings that his impact continues today. Early life and education. Warfield's boyhood home was marked by the best of vital, reformed piety and genuine godly concerns. Both his mother's and his father's families were rich with heritage. Behind him were military officers, educators, influential ecclesiastical leaders, and governmental and political figures, even a United States vice president. Warfield's mother, Mary Cable Breckinridge, was from the famous Scotch-Irish Presbyterian Breckinridge family of Maryland and Kentucky. Warfield's father, William Warfield, was descended from English Puritan forebears who had fled to America to avoid persecution. The Warfields were members of Lexington's Second Presbyterian Church, and it was here, at age 16, that young Benjamin made public profession of faith. William Warfield was a successful cattle breeder, and Benjamin was reared in some degree of privilege. He received a private education and developed particular interest in mathematics, and especially science, devouring with intense interest the newly published works of Charles Darwin.